I'm a big fan of Monster Hunter, but it seems like it's been a while since I've had a new game in this series to dig into. In part, I have to chalk that up to the fact that I didn't play Sunbreak, the most recent release in the series from mid 2022, and it's been an especially long time since Monster Hunter World. As time has passed and the series' 20th anniversary approaches, I've been hoping for an announcement of what's next for a while. Capcom's understandably been focused on Dragon's Dogma 2 recently, but just the other week at the Game Awards, we finally got a tease of what's a little further off. Today, I want to try something a little different and take a few minutes to have some fun and dive into what the trailer showed. While the trailer is brief, there are some details that hint at where the game is headed. If you haven't seen the trailer in full yet, I strongly encourage you to go watch it straight through at least once before listening to me ramble on about it. I'll leave a link to it on the official Monster Hunter channel in the description below. Let's take a look. This initial scene immediately has a characteristic look that had me unconsciously sitting forward, wondering if this was it. The creatures have a distinctive Monster Hunter feel, as does this desert environment, despite it being somewhat nondescript. There are quite a few creatures on screen, and their behavior looks pretty nuanced and believable, whether they are foraging for food or lounging in the sand. The geography evokes the Serengeti, the trees in particular, more so than a barren desert, which hopefully hints at the diversity we can expect in the final game environment. The wood and stone spires stand out and don't look naturally occurring. The singular color palette and low light makes it hard to pick out too many details, but there are multiple types of creatures. Those grazing and standing on their hind legs look like Kestodons. Others look new, like the Dimetrodon-inspired figures at the bottom center. There are a number of smaller birds, hitching rides, and small lizard figures hard to notice amongst the grass at the bottom right that remind me of Gallimimus. New creature designs look to continue to take inspiration from nature, past and present. Here we get a much closer look at those spikes, the presence of which may indicate gender amongst this species. Here we start to see the hints of dynamic elements in the environment. Roiling clouds and dust, backlit by subtle lightning flashes from an approaching storm, and changing illumination. A less static world is one of my big takeaways from the trailer, and we'll see more elements of this momentarily. These creatures bursting over the ridge look to be another new species. The way they move as a group and chase the rider is striking and more aggressive than most smaller media monsters in past entries. As the camera whips around, a dense herd is revealed ahead, providing an emergent obstacle. The animations and interactions look really fantastic as some individuals rear up in warning to the rest of the herd. And as the pursuing beasts dive in, tearing a path and keeping on the player's tail, indicating that maybe we'll be able to use elements around us in more varied ways to buy some time to heal or retreat, or otherwise aid us in the hunt. Similarly, the dust storm hinted at before isn't just a background element, but rolls onto the scene, providing another variable to account for. Before continuing, I want to jump back for a moment and take a look at the rider's weapon. This is the closest look we get at it. It would be a pretty big deal if this trailer definitively showed off a new weapon type. This is likely a greatsword, but it's kind of a modest one if so, maybe a starter weapon. Similarly, it looks too broad to be a longsword. The handle halfway up the blade is unusual, but might just be a detail of this particular weapon. The sheath and hilt look ornate, and there are a couple of very sharp points near the handle. I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least one new weapon class in Wilds, perhaps a glaive or spear weapon with some sort of transformation. Wishful thinking on my part at this point. Now we find ourselves right in the middle of the storm. The subtle lightning seen in the distance at the start of the trailer is now adding to the havoc, and likely posing a real threat to the player. A bolt has just hit the spikes of the creature ahead, seemingly dissipating the blast, but other strikes hit the ground much closer. It's visually exciting, but it seems like these dynamic factors, whether it's weather or monster behavior, will likely impact gameplay in some interesting ways that we'll have to learn. This shot also gives us a good look at the gear the mount is carrying. There's a bedroll and what looks to be a satchel with a rifle-like weapon sticking out. These make me think that along with the expanded scope of the area you're roaming, there's likely to be more flexibility for camping, eating, and preparing for the next big hunt, including carrying multiple weapons. I'd love to see more survival and crafting elements in Monster Hunter. So, fingers crossed. The mount is clearly very versatile for traversing all the different terrain it looks like we'll encounter. Monster Hunter Rise added a lot of verticality to the maps that you had to navigate using a combination of the wirebugs and mount. This creature looks to handle everything in one, including carrying those additional supplies, and reinforces my impression of the increased freedom and scale in Wilds. Also notable is the lightning strike in the background. The spire looks to act as a lightning rod, perhaps indicating the reason for their construction, if these sorts of storms are common in this area. As the storm passes by, it appears to blow the dust off the grass and change the environment. Ultimately, it's a short teaser, but if nothing else, this game certainly looks to be the real follow-up to Monster Hunter World. The familiar Rathalos soaring overhead, I think, is the only large monster to appear in the trailer. The 2025 date is definitely farther out than I hoped, but both World and Rise released early in the years they came out, so I hope Wilds will follow that trend, and we're not too much more than a year away from playing the full game. It's noteworthy that PlayStation, Xbox, and Steam are all listed here for the release of Wilds. I think a lot of people had feedback about World and Rise releasing on multiple platforms over a long period of time, progress not being transferable, and no crossplay. Even if it's perhaps taking extra time to develop, I'll certainly be glad to be able to grab the game on PC from the start as my platform of choice, although I may still have to take into consideration where friends are playing, depending on whether they allow crossplay or not. I really hope they do. The fairly ambitious-looking direction they seem to be heading in is a natural one, with a larger, more dynamic, and populated environment. While I think this plays with gameplay elements that I'll really enjoy, there are a lot of people who just want to do the big monster fights, or even speedrun. Hopefully the developers will provide some options to focus on those styles as well. And that'll wrap this up until sometime next year when we get more information. Once again, thank you so much for spending your time here on the channel. Shoot me a comment or a thumbs up or thumbs down on the video to let me know what you thought. And until next time, take care.